It's called what's it called? I'm gonna have to look up what it's called, but it's I'm really blowing this, aren't I? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Coffee with Father James, and I have the Pentecost mug today because this past Sunday we celebrated the Feast of Pentecost, the birthday of the church, and I'm standing outside the St. Peter's location of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, and I'm standing beside the Cornerstone, and if you look closely at it, it tells us that the stone was blessed and laid by the Most Reverend James Hayes, Archbishop Hayes, on June 29th, Feast of St. Peter and Paul, 1969. 1969, by the way, was a very good year. And the church that stood on the site, that had been on the site since 1881, had been destroyed by fire on December 28th, 1966. So, almost 60 years ago, they finished off building this church, and because I don't think it was a cornerstone, because I think if they put it in after the church was built, I think that's what it says. But it represents quite a history in the buildings that have served our parish, and I choose my language intentionally. The buildings that have served our parish. St. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, I think I lost my place. Yeah, chapter 3, verse 16. He says, "Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you?" The Spirit of God lives in you. And what's interesting is that in the original language, it's plural. St. Paul is saying, do you, the people of Corinth, the followers of Jesus in Corinth, the church in Corinth, that you are God's Spirit and God dwells in you, in your midst. And I think as we contemplate the importance, the sacramental importance that our sacred buildings have for us, it's important for us to remember that biblical principle that the temple of God, first and foremost in the scriptures, is the people of God. God's Spirit dwells among the people of God. Now, the people of God over the centuries have built and dedicated sacred spaces for sacred worship and for the gathering of the faithful, but the gathering of the faithful is beyond the confines of a building. In fact, our parish basically constitutes half of Dartmouth. That's what we're called to look after. But we also have buildings. We have these buildings that we've been gifted with. And over the last couple of years, we spent a lot of time and energy dealing with the closure of buildings. We closed 2 of our locations. We're selling them. And that's taken a lot of our time and attention. I want to invite you to think back to a year ago. About this time last year, we had a committee called the Dreaming Committee, and they actually helped lead a number of sessions. They facilitated 3 sessions where many, many parishioners gathered to dream about what a future renewed building would look like. The renewal of this building that had the stone placed here in 1969 when they finished construction. It wasn't a cornerstone. They had finished construction by that time. The committee had been formed as a result of the original process called New Foundations, when we discerned our options for the future, when we decided as a parish that we would be a 2-location parish. We would have our primary central location here, and we would retain a location in North Dartmouth for prayer and outreach to the poor. And then we looked at the different options of what we would do with this location, and it was determined that we would renew this present building, that the bones were solid. We had an engineering study done. And so that was accepted. We went through the process of consultation around the question of closure, but then we had the Dreaming Committee to talk about when we renew this building, because no matter what, we have to do something with it, because the bricks need to be repointed, the windows are rotting out, the bell tower has kind of been condemned. She's showing her age, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. If we want a building that's going to take us into the next 60 years, We've got work that needs to be done. But we gathered and we said to people, let's dream big. Like, what do we dream that this building could be? And what are the values that we want to see embodied in this building? Because I think it was Winston Churchill who said this, that we design our buildings before they're built and they design us after they're built. Buildings will design us because they contain values. And so we had a wonderful meeting around what do we value as a parish? And then we had another meeting on how would these values be incorporated into a building. We looked at the question of the future, because we're not building for the past, we're building for the future. Imagine 50 years from now. Let's go 40 years from now. We want a building that's going to serve us into the future. The committee completed a report, and it was received in June last year. And then we worked with architects. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We formed a committee to work with the architects to take the dreaming committee and come up with a proposal. And there was a lot of work required. They had to do all the studies. I don't understand everything they did, but they did a lot of work, including looking at the offsets from the park and where the shadows lie and the different zoning of the properties and what's going to be built. And at the end of January this year, 4 months ago, we got the feasibility study from the architect. And at first it was a bit of a surprise. We had a very interesting, we had the discussion earlier on a few months before, because we discussed something that's a complicating factor. We got the feasibility study, and in the end, I was just absolutely thrilled. I was excited. So we got this study 4 months ago. So here's the secret. We've been keeping this under wraps for 4 months. We brought the committee in, we got their feedback. A number of concerns were raised. We sent it back to the architects. They responded. They answered our questions in a satisfactory way. And then we had to go to the diocese. We wanted to go to the diocese to get the okay on the idea, on the concept. So we've done this feasibility study that says, this is reasonable. What we're proposing here is reasonable, it's doable. Now, exactly how we do it and the exact details and the costs, that's something we have to work out. That's going to take us another 12 months to create anything close to a plan. So we're still a long way away. But the green light was given to us by the Archdiocese on the idea. So what does that mean? Is that, we weren't going to waste time and energy going into developing a plan if we didn't get the green light on the idea. So we have the green light on the idea. We've got a lot of work to do in the coming year. But this weekend, I'm going to be communicating to the parish about the idea. And it's going to take place at the Leadership Summit on Saturday morning with the parish leaders. We'll have an in-depth presentation and discussion with the ministry leaders of our parish. And on the weekend, I'm going to try, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I just looked at the readings, but I'm going to try to work it into my homily to share with you a bit of the idea. And we will be having a follow-up meeting, an open meeting on June 19th. I think it's June 19th. Date is right here. So I'm excited to tell you about this because it's an exciting concept, and I hope that you're going to be excited. We've got a lot of work to do. It's going to take time. It's at the idea level, but I'm looking forward to sharing it with you, that we can continue the story, an important chapter of which started here in 1969, which, as I mentioned, was a very good year. Thanks, and God bless.